The liberal judge who was arrested and indicted for aiding and abetting a criminal alien, allowing him to escape, though he was eventually caught, has pleaded not guilty. She says that she did nothing wrong. Actually, she says she's immune from prosecution. Oh boy, this is getting spicy, isn't it? The Washington Post reports Wisconsin judge pleads not guilty to obstructing ICE arrest. Really? You know, the fascinating thing is when I heard that she was pleading not guilty, I said, how? The cops were all there in the courtroom. They've likely got surveillance footage. How is she going to argue she didn't do the thing they claimed that she did? They literally had to chase the guy as he escaped the building. She's claiming judicial immunity, arguing the actions she took were official actions as a judge, and thus she cannot be prosecuted. The Washington Post reports a Wisconsin judge pleaded not guilty Thursday to charges that she interfered with an immigration arrest. She argued that federal officials have no power to prosecute her. Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan entered her plea 2 days after a federal grand jury returned an indictment accusing her of obstructing an official proceeding and concealing a person from arrest. An attorney for her issued a statement this week saying Dugan asserts her innocence and looks forward to being vindicated in court. On Wednesday, Dugan's attorneys sought to dismiss the case, arguing that she is immune from prosecution for actions she took as a judge in and around her courtroom. As part of their argument, they cited last year's Supreme Court decision that found that President Donald Trump was immune from prosecution for official acts. In the coming weeks, a judge will decide whether to grant Dugan's request to dismiss the charges. And this judge might actually do it. Now, to be fair, we don't actually know what happened. We have a statement from law enforcement. We have the official indictment. A grand jury has seen enough to indict, but that is not adversarial, and that does not prove she actually did what she's accused of doing. The charges stem from an April standoff outside Dugan's courtroom in downtown Milwaukee. Federal agents showed up in the hallway outside of the courtroom to arrest Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Mexican immigrant who was to appear before her on state misdemeanor battery charges. Flores Ruiz had been deported in 2013, according to immigration officials. Dugan sent the agents down the hall to the office of the court's chief judge, according to the criminal complaint. While they were away, Dugan postponed Flores Ruiz's hearing and escorted him and his lawyer through a jury exit that leads to a private area of the courthouse. Hold on. The Washington Post says, quote, while they were away, Dugan postponed Flores Ruiz's hearing. The Washington Post is saying she did it. That's bold. They go on to mention, to be fair, it says Dugan sent the agents down the hall according to the criminal complaint. However, the next sentence is entirely removed from the previous. Sounds like they're asserting it as fact. They say that area leads to the public hallway where federal agents were stationed, and the agents soon saw him in the hallway. Outside, the agents chased Flores Ruiz and arrested him, according to the complaint. A week later, Dugan was the one who was arrested. FBI Director Kash Patel announced her arrest on the social media platform X, and later that day posted a photo of her being led away in handcuffs. Attorney General Pam Bondi accused Dugan of protecting a criminal defendant over victims of a crime. The DOJ's handling of the case won plaudits from supporters of President Donald Trump and condemnation from more than 150 former judges who called the arrest an attempt to intimidate the judiciary. Indeed, Dugan's arrest is echoes of a case during Trump's first term when the DOJ in 2018 charged a judge in Massachusetts with helping an undocumented immigrant escape from a courthouse. Those charges were dropped in 2022 under an agreement that required the judge to report herself to the state's Judicial Discipline Commission. On Thursday, U.S. Magistrate Judge Stephen C. Dries accepted Dugan's plea of not guilty and scheduled a trial for July. Dugan appeared alongside her attorneys, but did not speak during the 4-minute-long proceeding because she gets how this goes. You shouldn't be saying that stuff. Excuse me, man, allergy season. The case has been assigned to U.S. District Judge Lynn Adelman of the Eastern District of Wisconsin, who was appointed to the bench by President Bill Clinton. Adelman, a former Democratic state senator, drew attention in 2020 when he wrote a law review article accusing the Supreme Court of undermining American democracy. A judicial ethics panel later admonished him for the article. So you think there will be a fair trial? Kash Patel can arrest this lady. They are going to let her go. That's how it's going to play out. Now, funny, Daily Mail, I love this one. Outrageous defense claim of Wisconsin judge caught harboring illegal immigrant. And they're calling it outrageous that she would claim she is immune. She's not. Here's the thing. My view, maybe they'll successfully argue she is. She shouldn't be. My view on presidential immunity. Barack Obama murdered a 16-year-old American citizen. He's immune. He is. I believe if his immunity can be challenged, okay, so right now, Trump's DOJ can't go and arrest Barack Obama over the killing of Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki. What would need to happen is he needs to be impeached, and yes, you can do it retroactively, meaning you are saying the actions he took are illegitimate. He would need to then be convicted, and then he needs to be criminally charged, indicted, charged, whatever, face a trial, and then, for this judge, perhaps, similar argument. That being said, though, the reason why I say Obama's immune, despite the fact he murdered somebody, is because this was an official duty as president. He was authorizing drone strikes against enemies of the United States. I disagree with that. Still, it is logical and legal to say that is within the purview of the role of the presidency. If Barack Obama instead walked out on the Fifth Avenue with a gun and shot a guy randomly, that is not within the duties of the presidency and is not immune. This judge was not acting as a judge. She was aiding and abetting a guy outside of the official duties of her role as a judge. Just because she is a judge, it doesn't mean she's immune. If Donald Trump was in the Rose Garden at the White House, pulled out a knife, and just took somebody's life, we wouldn't say that was official duties of the president just because he's currently in the Rose Garden at the White House. This is a judge whose official duties were to prosecute, to have a hearing over a guy who is being charged with crimes. The purpose of immunity is that if the judge said, I hereby dismiss the case, bang the gavel, you can't charge her for doing that. That's her job. You might say, wait, why are you dismissing this case? There's evidence the guy's clearly done something wrong. You could argue that the judge took an action that was wrong, but she's immune. In this instance, however, just because she was sitting there a judge doesn't mean she's immune. And let this guy go, that's a crime. Now, I do want to throw something in here. I think I have is this the right one? I don't know. Okay, here we go. Here's a chart from Jack Posobiec. All Sides X Influencer Bias Chart. Oh, heavens me, from All Sides. I like All Sides, but they're wrong on this one. They're wrong. They put me in the lean right. And I would say they're correct if their assessment is based on the news you read. But that's fascinating. Matt Taibbi is centrist. J.K. Rowling is a centrist. Joe Rogan is a centrist. Glenn Greenwald is a centrist. I'm confused of what makes someone left or right on X. My point with this is I'm talking about this judge, and there's a bunch of other stories, and I see this, and I look at it and I'm like, you are considered left or right, not based on your policies, but based on the news you believe to be true. That's the weirdest thing. And this is how the categorization of left and right has come to be known in modern politics. As I talk here and say, this judge committed a crime and is not immune, it is not because she is going after an illegal immigrant. Well, I must be right-wing because, no, there is an issue in the news for which everyone is talking about. Perhaps I'd be considered left-wing if I talked about news stories that weren't in the news. Who would do that? This is one of the biggest stories. Now, on the left, they're going to argue she is immune, she did nothing wrong. But well, hold on, that's not fact-based. My opinions on this are not based on conservative or liberal policies, nor are yours most likely. Thus, the influencer bias perception is largely based on, do you believe in the rule of law? Do you not? If you take a look at the core details of any major story, the facts tend to favor the right. So here I am alongside Dr. Phil, Zuby, Scott Adams, Russell Brand, Piers Morgan, Elon Musk, Dave Rubin. Now, I'll tell you this. If you were to take half of these people, including myself, and ask them our opinions on policy, we're going to be liberal leaning. So what does it mean to be left or right? It really just means, which tribe are you in? That's it. Because policy-wise, I'd say I disagree with most of the entire right section. There's some things we agree on. I largely lean liberal on a lot of issues. But here's where we currently are. If you, at home watching this, think this lady committed a crime, you're right-wing, even though she's been criminally charged for doing it and was helping a criminal alien escape, a guy who was charged with battery. How is that a right-wing bias? The information. Indeed. We've got tomorrow. It's going to be great. You should watch it on the Culture War. It will be premiering at 11 a.m. on YouTube and Rumble. I had a conversation one-on-one with Adam Conover, and I thought it was good. He's a good dude. You know, it was one of the better conversations I've had with a liberal, and the fact that he was willing to come on the show and actually have the conversation shows. I think the issue for these lefties is they don't know what they're talking about. That tends to be the case every single time. The example that I'll give, here's the bait for the show. Adam Conover thought Trump called Nazis fine people. He genuinely believed that was true. And I pulled up Snopes saying, no, he didn't. And his response was, well, I'm not in your bubble. My bubble? I just read the news. I've got the New York Times, Politico, the Washington Post. This is what I find absolutely insane about the modern political discourse. I used the Washington Post as my principal source for this article, as I often do. New York Times, WAPO, sometimes the New York Post. It really just depends. But I try to use as many sources as possible. I just fact check them. And the Washington Post wrote the story up. How do these liberals not know these things? Because they don't even read the Washington Post. But I'm going to wrap it there. I'll leave it there, my friends. We got more segments coming up for you for the day. So stay tuned. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, and we'll see you all in the next segment.